got an email from John that he's having a computer issue and is trying to resolve it, and will log on as soon as he can resolve that. So,
Oh, I don't know who this is.
well, with the members present that we know of,
Mhm.
we could skip over the minutes and go to the
Yeah, why don't,
application, and then we can come back to the minutes at the end of the meeting once.
yeah, why don't we do that? Maybe John and others will get here.
We'll have more members maybe, yeah.
Why don't we do the communication? You wanted to talk about the city match, share that PDF.
Yep. So let me pull that up. So there are a couple of things I want to talk about. We got the, this is the annual state match we got from the raised off the 2020 revenue. So you'll see we received $290,204 from the state. That represents about a 50% match from the FY20 revenues. It comes in FY21, so it's counted as the FY21 match. And we were expecting, we had budgeted a 15% match. So the difference between what we had budgeted and what we receive in funds at the end of the year will become available to the CPA once the FY21 budget closes sometime after June 30th. The roughly $220,000 that were not budgeted will remain in CPA accounts and collect interest for the CPA. And then when the FY22 starts, we'll see that the undesignated funds go up by more than we expect.
But what money comes in for this year to be used? Did it already come in last year?
Well, we've already budgeted for it. So it doesn't affect the budget for this year. It just affects what we have in the bank. But because we won't know exactly what we take in for the different quarters this year, it's probably pretty good that we estimated conservatively. If we do take in lower local receipts, this would sort of balance that out.
So you're basically saying, Jamie, that this 290 that's in the middle here for 2020, 220,000 of that can't be used until it's certified after the 21 budget closes, correct?
Correct.
But the other money is available because we budgeted it.
Correct.
Okay, I got you. All right, well, that's good news.
Yeah, and so I mean, that's typical that we budgeted, we always tend to budget lower than we expect in revenue. So that way we don't spend money that if we budget more, then we could theoretically spend more money than we have and be in debt at the end of the year, which would not be a good way to run the CPA.
Okay, John is here. Hi, John. All right, let me share my screen.
Yeah, I also, I had two other quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Just that on the election day, the low mod income exemption was approved by the voters. And
yeah,
I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder about the park grant, but I think he already sent that out to everyone, and I'll let him talk about that.
We'll let you talk about that when we get there, Jeff. I just want to look at account balances real quick. I'm glad you're here, John.
Do you want to share the account balances?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Because I don't know where mine are. For some reason, I can't pull them up.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Here they are. They're here. I can pull them up.
I got
you
it.
Go ahead and do it.
Yep. Just tell me if you want to scroll.
So basically, just to make sure I understand it, we have $1,104,000 as a balance right now?
That's my estimate. The last report I received from the auditors was dated September 30th. And then I'm plugging in the what was approved for the Mount Tom North Trailhead Park, but has not been approved by City Council yet. And I put in a placeholder for the Burkowski bike trails. That was the request.
Okay,
So the one
but you've subtracted those from, what about the 300,000? Is that already taken out for the rent?
that's already been approved. So that's under the open projects.
Okay. But
And
this
that
is the
was actually-
balance, over $1 million in balance, is that correct?
Correct.
So even when we approve the Burkowski Trail, if we approve that tonight, that would be the balance. Okay,
Yep.
great. All right. Anybody have any questions for Jamie on the balances? Nobody's saying anything. All right, Jamie, you can stop sharing, and I'm going to let Jeff, why don't you talk about what you've done, a map for us for the Burkowski Trails? You can share things. Is that you, Ed, at 304 there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. Well, we'll be able to approve some minutes. So we're going to talk about the Burkowski Trail. We want to approve that tonight, as long as everybody has the information they need. So Jeff, you go ahead and share the map and any other new documents or information.
Thank you. I want to give a lot of credit to Hans. Dollhouse has really been helping kind of just get some of the framework going. And I put together two maps. This first one, Hans helped kind of show, it doesn't show the existing trails. This one really shows kind of the proposed trails and where they are. There was another map that did show some of the existing trails, but it got really kind of busy. And I think that is one of the things that will come out of the project if we're successful, is kind of a more usable map, which shows the trail system overall. But what I tried to do with Hans's help is show, Hans did the color coding. So there's the orange corresponds with a line item in the grant, which is to kind of repair this trail that goes from the pump station into the Burkowski parcel. And it was kind of a line item for $12,000 worth of estimated work to clear that. And then the purple is what people are calling like the uphill section. And it's been described as one of the worst, kind of most impacted portions of the trail. And the purpose here is to show that the top parcel, I included a map in Parcel Reference, so the top parcel is city owned, and then the Burkowski parcel is city owned. And then the yellow is an area that's really just cleaning up kind of an existing kind of set of cross trails. What I failed to do on this map was draw sort of at the bottom where it says town forest. There is a property line. There's a bottom of the property here, but it all is on city-owned land, which I think was important. And then, in discussions with the committee last time, just reference to where the parking areas are generally. There's a parking area at the log cabin, which I think Hans can talk a little bit about, a conversation with the owners of the log cabin. The parking over here on Bernie Ave is shown, it's on a side street. And then the area, this would be, in theory, this would be proposed future potential parking at the water building.
I can talk about that. I met with Greg.
Yep. And let me just show the other map just for a quick reference, and then I think we could just circle back to those discussions. And then there was a slight change to the budget, so I'll go over that too. But this is the other map. This is using the GIS, and I'm really no GIS wizard, so I kind of just outlined the city-owned parcel at the top, which was kind of dubbed the Catherine Root parcel. The previous owner who gave it, who provided it to the city. Then the middle city-owned parcel map 175 parcel 6 is the Burokowski parcel. And then the city-owned map 175 parcel 17-.1 is the Rocky parcel. And so I did some digging in the files, probably stuff that either Jessica or Stuart put together. And there are surveys of these parcels. I just didn't really have enough time to merge them all together to make these disparate surveys come together. So I used the GIS. But I think that was the goal, to show that we're anticipating the work to all be done on city property for this project.
Can you go back to the other map for a second before you do that?
Yeah, and
I just wanted to ask, these colored ones are the ones where work is going to be done, but there's, like on the Burkowski property going down to the Bernie Avenue area there's a lot of trails there that exist, but there's no work necessary. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I would defer to Hans if he wants to add that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
my understanding, is that this is a summary of the anticipated work areas. I mean, it's still subject to further delineation with work from GZA and other consultants, but I'll stop my screen share because I can't see everybody. If it looks like Hans is gonna add to that.
Yeah, can you actually could you possibly go back to the map with the property separation with one of the numbers?
Yeah,
Just because it might be helpful just for people to understand. So
We lost it, Jeff.
if you look, property number 4, I went cuckoo with this whole thing because I got so excited about it, right? So I tracked down the landowner for property number 4, and her name is Ruth Avondo. She lives in Chicopee. She inherited that land. She hasn't been out there for like 5 years. I don't really know if she realizes, but there's a part of the trail system cuts through her trail. And one thing to think about is just that, so number 2 right there is, that's the log cabin. So I had a conversation with Peter last week. He's very enthusiastic about the project. He said, if you guys want to park in the top, that's fine. I would want to just figure out something with when we're busy and we have events. Those are times where the parking is just maxed out. And I said, as things get closer, we'll kind of figure that out. But he said he's just really enthusiastic about, the hiking, the biking and everything. But one of the things is, though, I realized after having that conversation in the last meeting, is that where his parking lot is and where the trail goes in actually dumps out on number 4, which is private property. And I contacted her explaining the kind of project we were doing. And she was like, I'm worried about liability, so I can't give clearance for people to be on my property. But she did mention, and this could be something down the road, is that she's like willing to sell that property if ever it was for a recreational purpose, because she's just kind of holding on to it because she inherited it. But I don't think we could actually, people could go in that way at the top of the log cabin, but I don't think you could make it an actual trail entrance because it goes onto private property. So that would get kind of like, kind of weird.
Let me stop you there. Are you telling me that the log cabin entrance to the trails does not go into the Burkowski property? It goes into that.
It goes into private property, yeah. But that's what's.
Use it.
What's that?
We can't use it unless we purchase that property.
Well, no, you can. It's kind of one of those gray areas where people use it, because the loop that isn't shown, when Jeff was saying there's more trails, there is a loop that goes through that property, through the log cabin and then back down in, which was cut after all that damage that happened in 2015. So what I'm saying on a legal standpoint, I'm assuming for you guys, is you can't really say, hey, everybody, you can go in at the log cabin. People will still access it through the log cabin, but I don't think it's like one of those places currently that you can say, like, you can park there and access the trails, because it goes into private property in that one spot.
but is it worth? I think, to me, there's an important thing to identify, which is that we're not proposing work on that parcel as part of this project, right? So,
Yep.
so I think the trails would potentially just stay as is, exist. our funding sources are focused on the city-owned parcels. So I just want to, I mean, I think that's important just to distinguish that
Okay.
our thought process, at least initially, is that this funding is attached to city parcels. So we're not
Yes.
seeking to make improvements on that person's parcel, at least at this point. Maybe it's a future phase or something.
Yep.
But
Yep.
okay.
So one other thing I just want to add is if you look at number 7, number 7 is a landowner. His name is Aaron Newton. And so he, do you guys see that?
No.
So-
Dom, okay.
You guys see that?
Mhm.
So that number 7 is owned by Aaron Newton. Aaron Newton wrote a support letter that I sent to Jeff. I don't think he's had a chance to put it in the package, but Aaron has actual access on Jeep roads into the whole trail system we have to access, because I was trying to figure out how machinery and whatever to build these trails, how we get in there. Because if we have the private land at the top, we can't access that. The bottom has a bridge, which is definitely not going to hold the load of machinery. Aaron Newton has given clearance, which he'll sign off on, to access the trail system through his property, because he's all about it. He's, totally in support.
So I met with Salem and Greg from the DPW, and I'm happy to report that we think we can move the gate, and he'd do all the work to get us maybe 6 parking spaces below where the gate is now. We move the gate down. I think it's just to one side of I think it's Whitebrook there. So that was good news. We think that can happen and it wouldn't cost much. He would do all the work. He has to dig out some part of there's a slope there, but he definitely needs to keep the gate closed, but at least people could park there and ride their bikes in. He has no problem with that, but that's good news anyway. I think the log cabin option is I'm sorry to see that, because I think that would be good for parking, but if we have access in the number 7 Newton property, is that something that he's willing to do for all time, or you're just talking about now?
He's talking about during work, I think. I don't think he would make it as a public access because it's private property through his land.
Well, Jeff, maybe we should look into what it would cost us to buy that woman's property. Maybe out of the question, but at least we find out.
So just real quick. So I had a conversation with her. So it's assessed at 12,000.
That's all?
Yeah. And she said with the right offer, she would totally, and she said it was funny. She said she was surprised that when all the land was purchased for the Borachowski parcel, that she was never approached for her land. And it's 8 acres. It's like a good spot of land. So definitely.
It's heavily sloped though, isn't it?
What's that?
It's on a high slope, right?
Yeah, but it's one of the best sections of land up there, I have to say.
Well, I don't.
If I may, I think the city, I can't speak for the decision because it was before my time, but looking at the way the parcel is completely landlocked, it does not, it's not really a developable lot. I can theorize that at the time that we're making the decision to purchase the Borachowski parcel, we looked at that and said it's safe from any development pressure.
That's
and
why we
we
didn't buy it.
And we
yeah.
didn't need to buy it.
Well, my feeling is if we're going to create these trails, we ought to look at making it accessible from both sides. And that's not very expensive when it comes to land in Easthampton, but
Yep.
I'll let you work on that. Jeff, you want to talk about the budget here, how it changed a little bit?
Sure. Is the screen sharing the budget now, or is it
Yes,
still on the map?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'm learning more and more about Zoom, and it's really finicky with the screen share. So what I've been trying to do is set this up so I'm being as clear as possible. And it's hard. It's all words, but the requested amount, I'm hoping the requested amount can stay the same. And so the last time it was revised, the amount was increased to 35,400. And I thought for consistency and to create a little bit of a buffer, financial buffer, the proposal would be to keep it at 35,400 as the request from CPA, and hopefully the vote would be for that amount. And then the biggest problem that I'm encountering is just the timing of all this, and the estimate from GZA. I think they were really working with Hans, and they were really trying to provide something. But in terms of the resource delineation and the permitting, they gave kind of what I thought was a wild range. It was a very unmanageable range between 29,000 up to 77,000. So that's a huge range for permitting. And what I was trying to rationalize in my head is the narrative to Mass Trails. I didn't really want to go into that narrative with a range. So what I'm trying to propose is permitting at 41,500, which was my best guess at trying to be at the middle ground of what the resource delineation permitting might cost. Because they were saying it really depends on the scope of where they are in the trails and what they find. This is a the middle of the ground estimate, and so Mass Trails won't see the GZA proposal that we have. They're just going to look at this line item, and I figured that the mid range at 41,000 is it's probably high, but it's at least reasonable, and it's based on the middle estimate. And what I'm hoping to do is there is a 10% contingency built in, and there would be about $6,580 left of CPA funds that if the permitting started to go on a higher end, we could absorb up to like almost $20,000 above that estimate. What I wanted to try to do is have the flexibility to have a little bit of extra CPA funds that we could apply to additional costs once we get into this, rather than asking Mass Trails for a grant and showing a range there. So I'm just trying to be a little bit more definitive. So we brought down the total request a little bit. So, as outlined, the total project cost is estimated to be at 144,100, and that's probably what we would go into Mass Trails with. The 20% match of that would be 28,820, and that would be from CPA. And there would just be sort of that little bit extra available CPA funds that we would access if the permitting costs came in higher. And I tried to put in here that I would be very willing to give CPA an update. All of this is contingent on getting the Mass Trails grant. So we'd have to achieve that threshold first, and then we would seek some proposals for the project scope. And I think at that point we would have a better understanding of where we're at with costs. So I just was trying to be kind of as clear as possible that it's that range. The range provided by GZA it's helpful in one way, but it's not something I'm comfortable putting in, into the grant narrative. If that makes some sense.
If you bump that contingency up to 15%, would that give you a little bit more comfort in terms of covering in case the permitting does come in really high? I mean, it's the mountain, and it really is a wild guess on what you're going to hit up there in terms of species. And I mean, it's permitting is tough through natural heritage. So I mean, 15%, I mean, typically 10% contingency is normal, but 15 still passes the straight face test. And I don't know if a 15% contingency would help you out at all.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would get us, on the highest end of this, and even using the 10% contingency plus the extra CPA funds, we'd still be 15,000 short. If we, just assumed GZA was doing this and they came back and said it was going to be the full amount of 77,000. Yeah, that would be great to just up the contingency. It would just change the 20% match a little bit.
Mm.
So it's all within that range of asking CPA for the 35,400 and then just kind of doing the best we can to make that our grant request.
So,
there would always be a scenario where we would potentially have to come back to CPA, but the only thing that makes me nervous then is by then we would be rolling forward with the project, and then to have to wait 2 months to secure extra funding, that would probably cause a delay somewhere down the lane.
I'm a little confused, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
If you do 20%, let's say it's 35,000, can we ask for a higher grant and then bump that, what you're concerned about, up from 41.5 to a higher number? To be specific, I mean, we're giving you 35, what, 35,500, I don't have that in front of me. That's 20% of what, 160 something? I mean, I'm just wondering why not do that and then have that higher number already up there and and including the 15% that Jess is mentioning. Why not just do that? And would we get a bigger grant is what I'm asking if you did that.
We could, and I guess if I understood you correctly, on this one, it's the line item near the top, the 41,500 for resource delineation and permitting. I'm just worried that if we go in with too high a number, you know, it might not look right to the Mass Trails folks.
Oh, okay. I don't want to scare them away.
I don't want to scare them away either, and I didn't want to, because I think we are, you know, we're trying to get the funding in place to do the delineation. I mean, if we had, and I'm hesitant to say this because I really want to try to get this application in for this round of Mass Trails, because I often have to think like, well, what if we don't get it? And if we don't get it in the first round, we'll be waiting a year anyway. But you know, it's that first preliminary resource delineation that cost $6,000 that we just didn't have enough time to do that. And without that first step, we're kind of flying blind a little bit on that second one. So my rationale was going in the middle range so that it's a feasible number. I didn't want to put such a high number there that someone reviewing it would question why that number was so high.
Okay, I got you now.
So that's why I kind of kept it right at the middle ground, and it just trickles down. I think what Jess offered as a recommendation is to increase the contingency to 15%. That'll certainly help. And then it would, I guess if I crunch the numbers, we would still be, the 20% match would still be under that 35,400.
Oh, I think this is fine. I have no problem. Any other members have questions on this? Okay.
So you're still asking for 35,400, correct?
Yeah, let me check the numbers.
Okay.
Well, I think that would be the same because you would use the remaining, regardless of what it is, to cover the potential of new resource delineation and permitting funds. So if that goes down, it doesn't matter. You understand that, Jay, what I'm saying?
Well, I just want to make the motion with the correct number that he's asking for.
Okay. I think that it should.
Yeah, it works. It works. So I just was crunching the numbers. If you take the subtotal, which is 131,000, and then you make the 10% contingency go to 15, that's 26,200. And then those together is 157,200. Then 20% of that, which is the match, is 31,440. So yeah, so I think if the CPA is willing to grant the 35,400, that gives it just that tiny bit of extra contingency in there. That would work. That works great.
And you can use that 15% contingency should your permitting go up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, and we never know what's going to happen. I think, like Jess said, once we get out there, but the contingency could get eaten up by something else. But if not, it'll go towards that permitting. So it's always going to get eaten by something.
Right, exactly. Like if you didn't need it for the permitting piece, you've got coverage for something else later on.
Yeah.
And in the end, if you don't need the money, I mean, potentially it could get returned back to the CPA if you don't need it. But you may very well need it. It's a complicated project, no doubt.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, if there's any money left over, I would move it toward buying that property. I think that's something you should pursue. Why not? If it's only a little bit of money, that's not a lot considering how much property costs in Easthampton. $10,000 for 8 acres.
Well, it's because it's undevelopable. That's why it's so cheap.
Yeah, but it's great for our trail system.
Absolutely.
And she's absolutely right. She doesn't want people riding on that. Her liability's at stake. And I would think that would be, also it improves the parking situation, which we were all concerned about. So Jeff, I would look into that. And I just want to poll the committee. What do you think? If we got a request to purchase that property, would that be a problem for anybody? It's not much money.
I agree. I think that'd be great.
Okay. John has his finger up. Harry, question.
Yeah, I'd like to know where all these figures are coming from. I mean, who's getting all these bids and stuff for the trails and everything else? Where'd all those numbers come from to begin with?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of the approach for a lot of these grants is kind of finding the right group of people who are willing to talk to and come up with the numbers. So Hans did so much of the legwork with a trail company out of Vermont. You know, Hans, I don't know how many times you went to the site with him, but he came down.
So Harry, I did a ton of research because one of the biggest concerns with that area of trail or that area of land is being able to build like sustainable trails. And there's only like, probably a handful of companies in New England that actually focus on mountain biking trails and like multi-use trails and building them like kind of correctly. And so I did a bunch of research and found this company in Vermont. And I met with him out on the property. Honestly, it was probably like 3 different times walking. And he drove down from Vermont. I bought him lunch. We went out, we hiked for 3 to 4 hours. And that's where basically the last time he came down, I told him about the project, what we were looking at doing. And I, said we need to have an estimate. And so we went out there, bushwhacked through storm damaged area, found the trail system using GPS, hiked the whole thing. And that's how he kind of came up with the cost because we actually mapped it. And so that's a portion of it. And then, yeah, the rest is, like the bog bridge, that was all just figuring out the materials, measuring it. Yeah, so that's how we approached it.
And then
So it's not a guess.
Right, it's an educated guess. And then GZA, I don't know if they actually went to the site, but they had discussions with Hans about they looked at maps, they talked to the conservation agent and kind of understood the natural heritage like framework, that there's some habitat there for species. And so they provided, I think in good faith, an estimate of what they would do to do the project. And that's been really the formula that's worked the best, is to get those estimates and proposals and then base your grant budget on that. And I think it makes us go in with really realistic numbers. And also, not to give out all the secrets, and that's not really a secret, but then we can use that for the narrative and structure the project narrative and the work summaries based on all these people who have done some, level of research on what the project would look like.
Yeah, can I jump in one more item just with the GZA? So last year, because I was kind of like pushing this whole thing, I ended up contacting a GZA because I reached out to Natural Heritage. They connected me with one of their, I guess, biologists. I talked to them. They gave me a recommendation of, people that do wetland surveys that they approve. GZA was one of them. I met with Joe Rogers out there. We hiked that area, but at that point in time, we hadn't really fine-tuned what the work scope was. And so it was kind of all over the place. And so I gave him a map of like, look, I think this area is where we're going to be working. And he was like, well, that's kind of big. So I think it'll get fine-tuned when what he said was, once we kind of like flag a trail and he actually knows kind of like the area exactly, it's going to fine tune that scope of work for them. But this was kind of like, he was like, there's so much out there, I got to give like a ballpark number, but it's still like pretty, it's a good starting point.
So it's more than an educated guess. It sounds like to me you had some expert give you estimates.
Yep.
Okay. Does that help you, Harry?
I guess.
Was it prevailing wage quotes?
It just seems we're taking the word of one guy looking at this whole place rather than get a couple of people up there. I mean, I'm not sure who's involved or who we can get involved, but we're taking the word of some guy going out to lunch and then looking at it with a hike. I mean,
I think it's more than that, but
sort of seems like.
And Harry, I can appreciate that. I mean, that gives us enough information to make a reasonable request to this for the grants. The grant agencies don't want like the planner guy to just make this all up. So having at least someone with some kind of educated assessment to go out there and come up with the base number. We will go out if we do get this grant. It's a significant amount, so we'll have to go out to bid, and that's when contractors will look at the framework for the project and they're going to bid on it, and that's when you would get competitive bids and you would get the actual numbers, and like Jess said, the you know, the rate, the wage rates and all that stuff would come into play. But at least we know that we should be within the right ballpark for sending this out to bid. So that's the idea, at least.
I didn't know you were gonna go out to bid in this whole thing, so that just changes the whole perspective, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think Harry might have thought this was a bidding thing, and this is really how you go about getting grants. It's typical of how you approach grants. You get some expertise to give you a sense of what the work might be involved, so that you don't undercut yourself when you apply for a grant, because then you have to go out for RFPs to get the work done, and you don't want to be too low, and so you've got a good history, Jeff, of getting these grants and making them work, so I'm okay with that. Any other questions from members on this? Geez, everybody's so excited.
No, this is great. I appreciate it. I mean, it's great. It's a great project. Hans was really, I want to say something. I mean, for other people who think about projects, I mean, I spent some time with Hans, and I really just was saying, you know, we look around, and I would talk to Jess about this too. You look at all the great projects, and there are either one person or a small group of people who have been at those projects for a long time. Like, I think for most people, it just looks like, whoa, like the project just appears. But and 9 times out of 10, it's someone like Hans and people like have been thinking about this for well over a year, 2 years, 3 years for the harder ones. And it's just that the persistence that Hans has got him to this point. And I'm just saying that for other people because, you know, everybody wants something, but it takes a team, and it takes some people to really do some legwork to kind of make projects really kind of stay the course. So it's just important. I think this committee sees it, but I don't know that many of the members of the public see it. And I think everyone wants a park and everyone wants something to happen, but there's just a ton of work that leads up to that point. Like, it's really been really fun making those Facebook videos, but that is like, that's the project at completion. You know, those projects have years of lead time usually, so.
Well, I'll take a motion, Jay, unless there's any other questions.
No questions. I'll make a motion that we approve $35,400 for Borkowski Trail Project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the Borkowski Trail Project appropriation of $35,400. Any further discussion? Jamie, please.
Andy,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Ed.
Ed?
Ed, you're muted. You can hit
Muted.
*6. I'll come back to you. Greg, not here. Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Ed.
Yes.
Thank you, Ed. So the motion passes.
Okay.
Jeff, the timeline for this would be dependent on when Jamie can get the appropriation to the city council. Probably, I'm going to say, if it gets to the city council by the 16th of December, finance committee meeting soon thereafter, first meeting in January, it gets approved. Does that does that help your timeline for the grant?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Jamie, if that's reasonable, Jamie, that would be ideal, just because the rest of it is putting together the Mass Trails grant narrative.
Yeah, I think
16th is 3 weeks away, Jamie, or 4
to
weeks.
get to the 16th, it would have to be submitted to Barbara by the 10th. And the Thanksgiving week is kind of out, so that should be sufficient time. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it the second. Obviously, there's not enough time for that. So I think that'll work, and that's what you should expect. And Jeff, before you leave, I just want to remind you, I need you Monday for the Mountown North stuff, Finance Committee at 5 o'clock.
I have that on my calendar.
Okay. Thank
Dan.
you. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you guys so much and Jeff.
We'll
thank you.
probably ask you to come to Hans to the Finance Committee meeting when the city council looks at this, and then to the full council.
Yep.
If there's
Great. It's a great project, you guys. Congratulations pulling it
Thank you so
together.
much.
And I'm serious,
Yeah.
look into what that's gonna, if you wanna buy that property, I don't think you'll have an objection, and we could wait until the project's done to see if there's any funds left over and then add to it, maybe, I don't know.
I have a really basic question. I was gonna ask it and I wasn't gonna ask it, and I've been going around in my head with it, but in terms of the cost of an appraisal, is that, like, is that a request to CPA to cover the cost of an appraisal?
Planning department doesn't have funds in their own account
We
to
do,
do it.
yeah, now we
But we can
do.
reimburse it.
That's one thing,
I mean,
that
if
would,
she says she only wants 10,000 or 12,000, why do we need an appraisal? Is that
I
law?
would've-
You always need an appraisal, Dan.
Yeah.
You can't do it without an appraisal.
So if the appraisal
Even if
comes
the
in at
appraisal
50
costs
grand,
$2,000 for a $10,000 piece of land, you still need to do it.
So if it comes in at 50 grand, she's gonna want 50 grand.
yeah, I think the appraisal is the only way to really determine its actual value, and then it would all hinge on that. I'm
Well, let
very
me know. I
interested.
mean, I think it's worth doing for this project. Look at
Yeah.
it.
Is
What I
that,
would-
Jeff, is that something that mountain bike fund?
Yeah, that could probably cover the cost of the appraisal. Yeah, that was something I was thinking about mentioning that too. There was a donation, and it went into a created donation account that was approved by city council, and that was what was used to pay the trail guy to come down and prepare the proposal. So he didn't just do it for free. It was a very low cost investment to get that preliminary work done, and so it was used out of that donation. That's a great idea, Hans. The only thing I would say is that I would just, and I'm just approaching this kind of stuff as like pacing all of us, including mainly pacing myself. I think the best approach would be submitting the Mass Trails grant, and if we're awarded, then I think that would really cue us up to approach
That
that
sounds
property
perfect.
owner.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because then it makes all the sense in the world, but I wouldn't want to go too crazy in between now, and I don't even know I think, it could be like April before we know whether we're successful with the Mass Trails grant. But I think after that, especially if we're successful, then I think it would be like all, full steam ahead on that other element.
I agree. That's great.
Okay.
If I
Alright.
may, another option without, not just outright purchasing, would be to purchase a recreation conservation restriction, which would also deal with the property owner's liability concerns. Just to
Whatever works.
to
I
throw that out
almost
there.
think making it all city property makes sense, but
And I did have a question for you, Dan. Did you want to have a grant agreement for this?
as it is, I'd like all these agreements always to have those agreements
Yep.
in place. I think we have to do that, even though this is a city department planning, we ask them for the other groups that ask us for money. I think we should have those agreements in place.
Yep.
And anytime we can, Jeff, and all your projects, put a big sign up says partially funded by the CPA. I always like that. People ought to know what we're doing with their money.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That makes sense.
All right, so I'd like to move on to approval of minutes. We have a number of minutes we're going to approve. Jamie's going to call your name for that if she knows you were there at that meeting.
I think the only one that we can't do tonight is the June 18th. I think we can do all the ones but June 18th, but we can go
What we're
through
going
it.
to have to do with June 18th is the 4 people there are here, right, Jamie? That
Yeah, and because the person who Chris Cockshaw was filling in for Harry at that point in time, and he's not a member of the committee, I don't know that there's a requirement that non-present members can vote on it or not. So it's committee's choice if you want to proceed with it.
I think we ought to post the minutes. If the 4 people there say yes to the minutes, we can call them a draft minutes, and I'll find out what procedure we need. Maybe we invite Chris to a meeting to finalize it. We could do that. Why don't we try that next time we all get together? So why don't you go ahead and start for December 19th? Can we vote on that one, Jamie?
So anyone can make the motion and anyone can second.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from December 19th.
I'll second it.
All right, so we got Andy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes 6 in favor with 3
Scott, you
abstentions.
weren't there. She doesn't call your name.
The December one?
Yeah,
You were not there.
I thought I was there. Oh, December. No, I was there. Okay, never mind. Sorry, you're right. I was on a plane that day. Sorry. I would have.
but all of you, wave your hands if you think you were at the meeting and she didn't call your name.
I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
So next one is a motion for January 16th, please.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes for January 16th.
I'll second.
Second.
All right, Andy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Ed,
Ed, try to stay unmuted, Ed. Go on to somebody else.
Greg is absent, Jay,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yep.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
And
Ed, are you back? Well, we have enough people to say yes to approve those minutes. Next minutes are the February 20th.
Motion to approve the minutes from February 20th.
Second,
I'll second it.
who second, Andy? All right, Dan,
yes,
Ed,
Yes.
Greg,
he's not here.
sorry, Jay,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott was absent.
Okay, the next one is May 18th. Jay, you're up.
Motion to approve the minutes for May 18th.
I'll
Second.
second,
Jess is seconding.
just to mix it up.
All right, Andy was absent, Dan,
Yes,
Ed was absent, Greg,
he's
Not
there,
here.
not here.
sorry. I'm just going down my list and I keep reading the names. Jay,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Harry was not at that meeting. Chris was there, but he's absent tonight, and Scott.
Yes.
So that's 5, right?
1, 2, 3.
I count
Yes,
5.
that is 5. Yep.
All right, the next one is June 18th. So the 4 people who were here for that meeting, if we say okay, I will post them as a draft. And then if we get Chris in the future, at least I feel we could post the minutes as being preliminarily approved. All right, Jamie?
Yep.
So I'll make the motion to approve June 18th. Need a second.
I'll second.
So who's the 4 people that were here?
All right. So Andy,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes,
Jay,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
All right, and then Chris
okay.
is absent. So
So put them up as being preliminary. And the last one is our last meeting, October 29th.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from October 29th.
I'll second.
all right, and Andy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Greg, not here. Jay,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
All
all
right.
right. So our next meeting is scheduled for the 17th. But we may not meet if we don't have any new applications. So you'll let us know, Jamie.
Yeah, so I haven't heard anything. There's been no discussion, so let's,
Okay, thank you very much. We've done a lot of work this year. It was a good year. I don't expect us in December to have anything new. But I'm very proud of our rent relief we did this year. And the Mount Tom North Accessible Trail is a huge thing. We bought the property with CPA funding, and now we're building trails. And we got the grant. It's funny, we got the grant before we approved the match, so I don't know if that usually happens, but we got it, so.
I think we submitted a letter of support back in
Right.
June that said that the CPA committee committed to it, so.
So there's a lot of enthusiasm on the council for it, so I don't think there's any problem with that. So thank you all. I hope you have a good holiday, and if we don't have a meeting in December, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of that. Thank you all very much.
And before you,
We have
before
something.
you adjourn, was there discussion about the meeting time?
I'd like to keep it 6. Who's okay with that? It's late for me, 6:30, but John, are you okay with 6 or 6:30 still? Okay.
Yeah, I can do 6.
Okay. Scott, do you think you can make it work?
I can make it work. It changed. And I mean, it just for.
Well, it changed last
I just
January.
did it. I didn't know if other people preferred 6:30 as well. If everybody prefers 6, that's one thing. I just, for someone who like has kids, has a spouse that, also works, like it just later, later's better. But if, that's all. I just knew it changed and I didn't know we ever, whatever happened.
We could split the difference and go 6:15.
Oh, boy.
Are you sure
I'm
you're not a diplomat? You're a
I
diplomat.
always look for compromise. You know that.
Well, you're certainly not a Republican. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Ouch. Okay, we'll do 6:15. How's that?
Oh, no. 6
No?
o'clock.
I think we
6
used to
o'clock.
meet at 6:15. I have a vague recollect. No, it was
No.
never a
We used
6:15.
to meet at 6:30 because
6:30.
people used to get, but let's do 6:15 if that's all right. Is everybody okay with 6:15?
It doesn't
That's
matter.
good.
It's okay with me.
Let's do 6:15, Jamie. I'm in favor of compromise.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Anything for you, Scott, whatever you need. All right, thank you all. Let's have a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll
All
make a
right.
motion to adjourn.
Second. Jamie,
All right, Andy,
Aye.
Ann,
aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Scott.
All right.
Thank you all. We'll see you next time we see each other. I don't know, it might be January.
All right.
But,
All right.
good
Take
luck
care,
and
everybody.
Good
have
night,
a nice
everybody.
holiday, everybody.
Hold on.
Is
Stay safe.
What?
Stay
Stay? Oh, I thought